The Social Network is more than just a movie about the creation of Facebook. It's a deep dive into ambition, betrayal, and the complexities of modern friendship. Directed by David Fincher and written by Aaron Sorkin, this 2010 film is still as relevant today as it was when it first hit theaters. In this video, we'll explore how The Social Network brilliantly captures the rise of Facebook, the personalities behind it, and the broader implications for our digital age. The film is a semi-fictionalized account of how Facebook was created, starting from Mark Zuckerberg's days as a Harvard undergrad. Played by Jesse Eisenberg, Zuckerberg is portrayed as a socially awkward genius with a chip on his shoulder. The screenplay, based on the book The Accidental Billionaires by Ben Mesrich, takes us through the tumultuous journey of Facebook's inception. But the story is not just about coding and startup culture, it's about human relationships and the cost of success. The creation of Facebook starts with an active revengeia theme that recurs throughout the film. Zuckerberg's motivation, while partly rooted in innovation, is also driven by personal grudges and the desire to prove himself. While Zuckerberg is the central figure, the supporting characters are equally compelling. Andrew Garfield's portrayal of Eduardo Saverin, Facebook's co-founder and Zuckerberg's best friend, adds emotional depth to the story. Their friendship, which begins with trust and mutual respect, unravels as the company grows, leading to one of the most dramatic confrontations in the film. The tension between Zuckerberg and Saverin represents the central conflict of the film: loyalty versus ambition. As Facebook's success escalates, Zuckerberg becomes increasingly influenced by Sean Parker, played by Justin Timberlake, whose vision for the company clashes with Saverin's more cautious approach. Timberlake's performance as Parker is both charismatic and manipulative, showcasing how Parker's influence on Zuckerberg drives a wedge between the co-founders. The dynamic between these three characters, Zuckerberg, Saverin, and Parker, forms the emotional core of the movie. David Fincher's direction brings a dark, moody atmosphere to the film, perfectly complementing Aaron Sorkin's sharp, rapid-fire dialogue. The use of dim lighting and cold color tones reflects the film's themes of isolation and betrayal. Fincher's meticulous attention to detail, combined with Sorkin's dialogue, creates a tense, fast-paced narrative that keeps the audience engaged. The opening scene, where Zuckerberg's relationship with Erica Albright disintegrates over a single conversation, sets the tone for the entire film. This scene, which consists mostly of dialogue, is a masterclass in writing and acting. It not only introduces us to Zuckerberg's character but also foreshadows the conflicts to come. Since its release, The Social Network has been praised for its portrayal of the birth of social media. But its relevance has only grown over time. As Facebook has expanded into a global giant, the ethical questions raised by the film about privacy, power, and the consequences of innovation have become even more pressing. In hindsight, the movie almost seems prophetic, predicting the controversies and challenges that Facebook would face in the years to come. It's a film that not only entertains but also encourages us to reflect on the impact of social media on our lives. Every age has its visionaries who leave, in the wake of their genius, a changed world, but rarely without a battle over exactly what happened and who was there at the moment of creation. The Social Network explores the moment at which Facebook was invented, through the warring perspectives of the super-smart young men who each claimed to be there at its inception. The movie moves from the halls of Harvard to the cubicles of Palo Alto to capture the heady early days of a culture-changing phenomenon in the making and the way it both pulled a group of young revolutionaries together and then split them apart. In the midst of the chaos are Mark Zuckerberg, Jesse Eisenberg, the brilliant Harvard student who conceived a website, Eduardo Saverin, Andrew Garfield, once Zuckerberg's close friend, who provided the seed money for the fledgling company, Napster founder Sean Parker, Justin Timberlake, who brought Facebook to Silicon Valley's venture capitalists, and the Winklevoss twins Armie Hammer and Josh Pence, the Harvard classmates who asserted that Zuckerberg stole their idea and then sued him for ownership of it. Each has his own narrative, his own version of the Facebook story in this multi-level portrait of 21st century success. Both the youthful fantasy of it and its finite realities as well. In October 2003, Harvard University student Mark Zuckerberg Jesse Eisenberg has the idea to create a website to rate the attractiveness of female Harvard undergraduates after his girlfriend Erica Albright Rooney Mara breaks up with him in the opening scene at a local bar after a bad date where his ego and abrasiveness brings out the worst in him. Over the course of a single night, a half-drunk Mark hacks into the databases of various residence halls, downloads pictures and names of female students, and, using an algorithm for ranking chess players supplied by his best friend Eduardo Saverin and Drew Garfield, he creates in a few hours a website called FaceMash.com, where male students can interactively choose which of two girls presented at a time is more attractive. Mark is punished with 6 months of academic probation after the traffic to the site brings down parts of Harvard's computer network, and he becomes vilified among most of Harvard's female community. However, the popularity of FaceMash and the fact that he created it in one night, while drunk, brings him to the attention of Cameron Winklevoss and Tyler Winklevoss, Armie Hammer and Josh Pence, identical twins and members of Harvard's rowing team, and their business partner Divya Narendra Maxminghella. As a result, he gains a job working for the Winklevoss twins as the programmer of their website, Harvard Connection. Soon afterwards, Mark approaches his friend Eduardo and tells him of his idea for what he calls Facebook, an online social networking website exclusive to Harvard University students. He explains this would let people share personal and social information securely. Eduardo agrees to help Mark, providing a fee of $1,000 to help start the site. Once complete, they distribute the link to Eduardo's connections at the Phoenix SK Final Club, and it quickly becomes popular throughout the student body. When they learn of Facebook, the Winklevoss twins and Narendra believe that Zuckerberg stole their idea while simultaneously stalling on their website. Cameron and Divya want to sue Mark for intellectual property theft, but Tyler convinces them they can settle the matter as Harvard gentlemen without resorting to the courts. A few months later, at a lecture by Bill Gates' Steve Sayers, fellow Harvard University student Christy Lee Brenda Song introduces herself and her friend Alice Melise to Eduardo and Mark. She asks that the boys Facebook us, which impresses both of them. The girls invite them to a bar, where they have sex in the toilet. Mark later runs into his ex-girlfriend, Erica, who is not aware of the Facebook's existence because she is not a Harvard University student. Stung by this, Mark decides to expand the site to more schools. Christy, Mark, and Eduardo later return to Mark's room where they outline the structure of the company and their plan for moving forward. By the spring of 2004, the Facebook grows in popularity, and it expands to other schools in the northeastern United States. While the Winklevoss twins and Narendra become angrier at seeing their idea advance without them, Tyler refuses to sue them, instead accusing Mark of violating the Harvard Student Code of Conduct. Through their father's connections, they arrange a meeting with Harvard President Larry Summers Douglas Urbanski, who is dismissive and sees no potential value in either a disciplinary action or in a lawsuit against the Facebook website itself. Through Christy Lee, now Eduardo's girlfriend, Eduardo and Mark arrange a meeting with Napster co-founder Sean Parker Justin Timberlake. When Christy, Mark and Eduardo meet Parker at a trendy fusion restaurant in New York City, Eduardo becomes skeptical of the eccentric Parker, noting his problematic personal and professional history. Mark, however, is impressed with Parker since he presented a similar vision of Facebook. Although no deals are reached, Parker suggests that they drop the from Facebook to make it simply Facebook. That summer, Mark moves the company's base of operation to Palo Alto, California at Parker's suggestion, while Eduardo remains in New York for seeking advertising support. When Eduardo visits from New York, he is angered to find that Parker is living at the house and making business decisions for Facebook. After an argument with Mark, the vindictive Eduardo freezes the company's bank account and returns to New York. Upon returning, Christy and Eduardo argue about his Facebook profile, which still lists him as single. Christy accuses Eduardo of cheating on her and sets fire to a scarf he gave to her as a gift. While Eduardo extinguishes the fire, Mark angrily calls him on the phone about freezing the Facebook bank accounts, and reveals that they have secured money from an angel investor through Parker's contacts. As a result of Christy's jealousy, Eduardo ends his relationship with her. Meanwhile in England, while competing in the Henley Royal Regatta, the Winklevoss twins become outraged that Facebook has expanded to a number of universities there, and they finally decide to sue Mark. Eduardo has also discovered the deal he signed with Parker's investors allows them to dilute his share of the company from a third to less than 0.1%, while maintaining the ownership percentage of all other parties. He confronts his erstwhile friend Mark at his new Facebook office in downtown LA, and announces his intention to sue him. Later that night, Parker, along with a number of Facebook interns, is arrested for possession of cocaine during a party thrown on the occasion of Facebook's 1 millionth member. It is strongly implied but never fully explained that Mark had anonymously tipped off the police to raid the frat house where the party was held, and probably had someone plant drugs at the party to intentionally have Parker and his interns arrested to remove them from the Facebook company. In the final scene, a junior lawyer for the defense informs Mark they will be settling with Eduardo, since the sordid details of Facebook's founding and Mark's cynical personality will make a jury highly unsympathetic to him. The film ends with Mark sending a friend request to his former girlfriend Erica on Facebook, and refreshing the page every few seconds waiting for a response that never comes. Several final on-screen texts state that the Winklevoss twins agreed to a settlement of $65 million and signed a non-disclosure agreement. They later went on to row in the Beijing Olympics and arrive at 6th place. Eduardo received an unknown settlement and has his name placed back on the masthead as Facebook's co-founder, and that Facebook now has 500 million users in 207 countries and is valued at over $25 billion. Therefore making Mark Zuckerberg the youngest self-made billionaire in the world. At its core, The Social Network is a story about loneliness, power, and the pursuit of something greater than oneself. It's a film that asks us to consider what we're willing to sacrifice for success and whether that success is worth the cost. As we navigate our own relationships and ambitions in an increasingly digital world, the questions raised by this film remain as important as ever. At its core, The Social Network is a story about loneliness, power, and the pursuit of something greater than oneself. It's a film that asks us to consider what we're willing to sacrifice for success and whether that success is worth the cost. As we navigate our own relationships and ambitions in an increasingly digital world, the questions raised by this film remain as important as ever.